Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the 2018 NFL Draft Class, specifically cornerback Mike Hughes out of Central Florida in terms of his production analytics. So if you're new to the channel, you're new to the work that I do, all terms and definitions will be in the description. So if you're not really familiar with stuff like market share data at the defensive position, which I think a lot of you guys are probably not familiar with, you can just go to the description where the term and definition will be there to kind of help you out as I go along. Now, all you really need to know for this video is defensive market share. And you might be going, okay, what is defensive market share? All that is you take an individual defensive statistic and you divide it by the team total. For example, if I say somebody has solo tackle market share, all that means is you're taking the total solo tackles of any player in this particular area, cornerback, and you're dividing it by the team total solo tackles. So, for example, if a cornerback has 50 solo tackles on a team that has 500 solo tackles, then that cornerback had 10% solo tackle market share. But what you do with that number is you take that performance and you compare it to every single cornerback performance since the 1989 NFL draft class, which is as far as I've been able to go when it comes to defensive data. And then you have a way to see where most of the all-pro cornerbacks typically performed, where most of the Pro Bowl cornerbacks typically performed, and of course where most of the starters typically performed as well. So essentially it's a way of saying, it's a data trait is essentially what it is you're looking at, okay, these are all the all-pro cornerbacks over a span of 20 plus years. How did they perform based on their production data? And you're looking to see, did this cornerback perform like those guys? And if he didn't, then you start to, bring up some questions. Or at the very least, you get to see what cornerbacks typically performed like him over the years. And then you get to see the successful ones that performed like him. And then you can start to see, does he have anything in common with these other guys? So again, a lot of data in general is a way of giving you a reference point so that you can explore other avenues, so that you can learn about the game a little bit more, so you can pick up on some more information and traits that maybe you didn't do before. So it's essentially a way of just checking and double checking and processing information that can make you more informed. It's basically giving you more information to make a more informed decision about a prospect. This doesn't take away film, doesn't take away any of that stuff, but it does just give you film plus a way to give you some questions to ask on film, questions to give you some areas to do a little bit more research into, a little bit more work into solving some of these questions and some of these other sort of things when it comes to a prospect. So with all that out of the way, getting to Mike Hughes, his solo tackle market share score was 51.32 out of 100, and his pass deflection market share score was 85.57 out of 100. Based on my data since 1989, again, when it comes to the cornerback position, the bottom end threshold for multiple all-pro cornerbacks. So every single multiple all-pro cornerback since 1989 had at least a 60.73 solo tackle market share score or higher. So doesn't quite hit the all-pro threshold, but he does hit at least the Pro Bowl threshold. The Pro Bowl threshold for solo tackle data is 16.23 out of 100. So he at least hits above that mark. It's important to note, though, that this bottom end threshold is set by Antonio Cromartie, who the reason why this was like this was because he was a guy who was kind of a backup, had a season, and then got injured, and then entered the draft immediately. So he just is one of those guys that's kind of a little bit of a, outlier, an anomaly. I still include him because, again, he was a multiple Pro Bowl cornerback. He was an incredible athlete in terms of testing and had length, had those other sort of things. So essentially he's sort of a guy to bring up that if there's another guy who comes around who's not very productive but has crazy length and crazy athleticism, he could be the next Antonio Cromartie, So that's basically why I kind of include him. And of course, when it comes to Mike Hughes' pass deflection market share, he had 85.57 out of 100. which pretty much hits the bottom end threshold of 62.78 for All-Pro players and 20.25 for Pro Bowl players. So there's a bit of a difference here in terms of Mike Hughes, is that his pass deflection market share is pretty dang decent. And of course, when you look at the averages of pass deflection market share for all pro players and Pro Bowl players, he pretty much hits in the average area, above what the average is of all pro and Pro Bowl players. His solo tackle data, though, is concerning. 51.32 out of 100. When you look at the average score of an all pro player and the average score of a Pro Bowl player, he's well below average compared to what all-pro players typically do and what Pro Bowl players typically do. So when it comes to Mike Hughes, based on his overall data, he's someone that has very good pass deflection market share, but his solo tackle data is a little bit concerning. And I do understand a lot of you guys are going to go, okay, well, what is solo tackle? Like, what does it matter about solo tackle at cornerback? And I'll say this much. First of all, the data makes it very, very clear that you need to have high solo tackle. Like, there's no other way around it. Like, the data is pretty clear that you need to have above average solo tackle market share. I mean, it just is what it is. Even Deion Sanders had above solo tackle market share, and he was a guy that people said didn't tackle that much, when you watch him on film, he actually did tackle pretty well. But whatever the narrative is always like, oh, cornerbacks don't need to tackle. Well, yeah, they do. And just from a film perspective, just to give you the perspective of a guy that watches film, if a cornerback is very good in terms of solo tackles, that means that he is trying to find the ball and trying to make plays on the ball. It means he's helping out in run support. It means he's helping out with screens, because if you're getting high solo tackles, you're fighting through guys to tackle guys on screens, and screens are becoming a big thing in the NFL now. Like, screens are why guys like Case Keenum exist. The screen pass is kind of the new running game. So, if cornerbacks can't tackle, you're giving up a lot of stuff. So it basically gives you an idea is this cornerback a complete cornerback in many ways, is what solo tackle data really gives you. Is, yeah, he may be really good in terms of when the ball is in the air, but is he getting it done when it comes to those other sort of facets of the position? And that's the only sort of question mark with Mike Hughes. Now, as far as what his film says about him, go watch his film. This video is not about film scores and all that kind of stuff. There are a million different people, maybe not a million, but maybe hundreds. There's hundreds of people that can watch cornerback film and do a lot better of a job of evaluating that than me. But based on production data, Mike Hughes is decent. I do think there's some positives here. Again, the pass deflection market share is pretty decent, very decent. But I do think the solo tackle data is something to be concerned about, and it is something that kind of takes away the high-quality outcomes of him, to where he's more of a long-term starter than a multiple Pro Bowl type. So that is the only sort of issue to kind of consider when it comes to Mike Hughes. And on top of that, strength of schedule as well, where he, didn't face a terrible competition, strength of schedule, and definitely had his moments against top competition like Auburn, etc. But you do have some question marks because he didn't really have high solo tackle market share, and he played a relatively softish schedule when it comes to his overall data. So those are the only sort of concerns. Athletic testing definitely is another thing to kind of consider, and we'll get to that when the combine rolls around. But for the most part, Mike Hughes looks like a long-term starter. I mean, at the very least, that is a big sort of thing it looks like with him, but high-quality outcomes seem to be a little bit less likely due to his solo tackle data. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn@wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button so that you're always reminded when another video of mine drops. And also check out the 2018 NFL Free Agency Guide. That's available on Amazon/Kindle for $9.99. The link is in the description for that. And that has hundreds of profiles on quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive linemen that are set to hit free agency this year. And I highly recommend that you get that guide because, one, it gives you a ton of information about the free agencies that are about to hit the market this year. Two, it gives you a lot of information to make you a more informed fan. And three, it helps to support the channel. So if you're trying to find another way to support this channel, again, if you really, really like these videos and you really like the content that I provide, be sure to buy that guide, because all the funds from that really do help keep this channel up, really help to support the work that I do. And it's sort of a way of supporting the work that I do, but also giving you some value as well, because you're getting information that realistically you're not going to find from pretty much anybody except for me. So again, be sure to buy that guide if you have a chance, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.